Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Coming up on the program, with at least 160 lives already feared lost, health workers in the DRC are racing against time to contain a deadly disease that spreads as fast as it kills. A growing diplomatic fallout with Brussels is slowing Rwanda down. Kigali insists its troops will remain in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado, pledging to sustain the fight against insurgents despite accusing the EU of abandoning a critical security mission. And African animation is stepping out of the margins with bold global ambitions. As studios, streamers, and creators invest in original stories from the continent, the key question remains, can Africa turn this creative momentum into a truly sustainable animation industry? It's been 1 week since an Ebola outbreak was declared in the DR Congo. The eastern province of Ituri remains the epicenter where the virus is feared to have already killed at least 160 people. As cases rise, health workers are racing to contain the spread. Emmett Livingston reports from Kinshasa.
Aid workers are in a race against time. Ebola is spreading in several different areas of Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. And to stop its advance, aid organizations have to fly in tons of medical supplies into remote and often conflict-ridden areas. We visited a Doctors Without Borders warehouse in the capital, Kinshasa, to get a sense of this logistical challenge. The humanitarian organization has been sending regular shipments of supplies to the east. When we were there, it was preparing to send 16 tons of everything from masks and medicines to isolation tents.
In the coming days, the main challenge will be to identify locations for Ebola treatment centres. But we'll also be travelling to affected areas to provide health education concerning the virus. We always have emergencies in the DRC. We have emergency teams, and Doctors Without Borders have several of them in the DRC. We have 3 across the country that are used to responding to emergencies. In this case, this is a much larger scale response that is calling on the most of our divisions at the same time. So we are calling with an operational workload that's pretty significant.
Other organizations are also delivering emergency equipment. The UN, across various agencies, has shipped nearly 100 tons. This is crucial in Ituri, where hospitals lack for almost everything. But one of the gravest challenges remains security. Armed groups are active in Ituri, and in one of the hospitals at the center of the outbreak, angry locals set tents on fire after trying to retrieve a cadaver of a person suspected of succumbing to Ebola. Congo's government says it has reinforced security measures.
And to neighboring Rwanda now, where a diplomatic rift with the European Union is widening over security funding in Mozambique. The Foreign Ministry has criticized Brussels for halting support for Rwandan troops deployed in Cabo Delgado, where they've been fighting Islamist insurgents since 2021. Kigali says it will now coordinate directly with Maputo, insisting funding is already secured for the 6,000 soldiers on the ground. Aura Bayud reports.
Rwanda has decided to move on from European funding for its military mission in Mozambique. The Rwandan foreign minister says Maputo has already secured the funds needed to continue the cooperation. The details of the military deal between the two nations have never been made public, although both governments have regularly praised their partnership. Until now, the mission had been partly funded by the European Union, which contributed around 39 million euros, covering barely a fraction of Rwanda's total costs. But tensions over Kigali's role in eastern DR Congo have frozen any further European Union financial support. The minister accused some European states of irrational politicization of the funding, even though, according to him, this intervention benefits their economic interests. Rwandan troops have been in Cabo Delgado since 2021, fighting an Islamic State-linked insurgency. Kigali also claims a humanitarian success, saying its forces helped reopen schools and local businesses. Several analysts, however, say attacks are still taking place across the region.
And now to culture. Following his national pavilion at the 2024 Venice Biennale, Senegalese painter Alioune Diagne returns to Paris with Seytou, a new body of work shaped by 2 years of research across Senegal. The exhibition explores the preservation, transformation, and transmission of cultural heritage at its core.
Culture is greater than us. Today, if you have values, it's because culture is what gives us those values. And that's what we have in Africa, that opportunity. This opportunity to have cultures, these cultures that teach us and give us values, dignity. And that's the idea behind Seitu. It's really about saying that culture, whether Western or African, must be preserved, must be kept, because that's what allows us to be people of value.
Happy to see our Senegalese culture represented.
It's rare to see an artist doing this here in France, and he's Senegalese like us, so that's why we're here today.
Many galleries should do this, and I think it's great. Even for someone like me who isn't part of the diaspora, discovering artists, stories, and cultures is very enriching.
It's also great because in European galleries we don't often have the chance to discover artists from non-Western backgrounds.
Beautiful work. Now, African animation is stepping into the global spotlight, from Afro-futurist words to AI-driven storytelling. A new generation of creators is reshaping how African stories are told and sold to international audiences. We speak now to South African writer, director, and story consultant Tsepo Moshe. Welcome, Tsepo. So you're a writer, director. So how does your roles differ from working in, I would say, traditional films?
Traditional live action, it still works the same way. We write in the same kind of spheres. I think directing is a little bit different because in animation you have a whole visual treatment, and that's a whole different pipeline. But outside of that, the roles are pretty much the same across the board.
And how did you get into that sector?
I actually started off, you'll see on screen, on Netflix's first African animation series, Super Team 4, which was produced with Cake Entertainment and Triggerfish Studios. So I started in a writer's room where this show had an all-female, all-African writer's room, which for me in my 30s was the first time experiencing that. And then following Super Team 4, I joined Triggerfish as a creative consultant on the Kia and Kamoja Heroes series. And then I was also a director on the Kizazi Moto Generation Fire anthology series produced by Disney+. So it's been a few years in the industry now.
And animation since then, and African animation, are gaining more and more visibility. So do you think this is a breakthrough, or are we still at the beginning?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think I'm still a bit at the beginning in terms of understanding that African storytelling is unique in its own way, but also very accessible and very relatable in a lot of spheres, but also a little bit old in terms of we've been telling stories. Our culture is to tell stories. So animation is just another visual medium in order to express our stories.
And financing, I'm guessing, remains a huge challenge for African filmmakers. But is animation even harder to fund than live action?
I think so. I still think people are still trying to understand that animation is a viable career, let alone something viable on screen as well. So that's still really growing. I think funding in a lot of I'd say more European Western countries, they understand it a little bit better. But on the continent, we're still quite a small number of people. We all know each other on the continent. So it is still the understanding around animation being viable, and that there's an audience as well around animation. Because I think culturally, we think animation is for kids. But a lot of our shows, a lot of the stories being told are for age groups across the board. So it's growing, but still a little bit difficult. But I think a lot of independent institutions are also doing a lot of work to kind of bridge that gap. Co-productions is also really fantastic. And I think there's a lot of growth that needs to happen around distribution, which is really exciting because I think the continent could also start to produce a lot of their own unique ways to distribute their content a little bit better.
And I Conquer is not just for kids. So you've worked on internationally recognized, you mentioned it, productions like Super Team 4 and Kia, some of them on Netflix. So do you think that global platforms are essential for opening doors to African creators?
Absolutely. I think it's essential for opening doors to any creators from any land or space. And the more we're more willing to diversify our portfolios and the voices that are expressing the stories, I think it can only grow further. Yeah.
And we often hear about or talk about the potential of African animations. So what's still missing for the industry to become truly sustainable?
I think distribution is a big hill. I think that's across the board as well. So having distribution, varied distribution platforms would help assist. I think being able to reach our audiences as well. I think a lot of the time, a lot of the content coming out of Africa is to be produced and held outside of the continent. But in ourselves, Africa is such a large number. I mean, we have, I think, majority of the youth under 25 and growing. So understanding that our own continent is a marketplace in itself, I think would really help push our industry a lot forward on a global scale in terms of that.
And what are your thoughts about AI? It's now entering the creative process. Is it an opportunity for African storytellers, especially with limited budgets, or a threat to the originality and jobs?
It's tricky, it's sensitive, it's touchy. I think it can play out either way. It's a tool. And with most tools, it depends on the hands wielding the tool, makes it a threat or an advantage. I think there was a space when AI came in that I got excited with around, I work a lot on development, so I help to develop other African studios and creatives. And one of the things is language barriers. Sometimes it's the funding and backing to have the visual treatments that reach audiences in the right way. So I think AI has been able to assist us in boosting that forward. But again, it's about the hands that are wielding the tool at the end of the day. So for me, it can be something that supports the work with the understanding that it doesn't replace the work, because what is story if it's not connected to a human condition and a human understanding? But I think there's spaces where AI can also, extend beyond that and also kind of dilute the artistry that's being expressed in animation, which is very important. Very unique. So again, it's a tool in the hands of the wielder, essentially.
Thank you very much. And that's our last words. Thank you, Tsepo Moshe. That concludes this edition. Thank you for watching Eye on Africa on France 24.